So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for session 2 of getting ready for your year. And tonight's session is going to be on developing your leadership team. So we had session 1 probably at about a month ago. We had a fantastic motivational speaker, Jenny Stotts. She is certainly making a name for herself within the Rotary circles. But she talked about, why are we Rotarians? And that's important to discern and also be able to communicate, why are you a Rotarian? So as far as how do you share your story? And that's important when we were thinking about how do we grow Rotary? Like someone says, why are you in Rotary? You need to be able to answer that, hopefully with some enthusiasm so that you can possibly attract them to Rotary and also just sharing the good work that we do. But she also talked about 3 things. One is just thinking, as far as, again, what is it that we do? What is it that we do well? How do we stretch? In other words, how do we just do something and go just a touch further as far as just a little bit? And also that's encouraging our members to stretch. And lastly, how do we take that information and plan? So session 1 was on evaluating your club. We identified some resources, whether it be the Rotary Club Health Check or the Rotary Learning Center, but really just assessing where's your club at now and whether that's just, taking a look around or some more data-driven surveys that you might utilize, figuring out where that is. Tonight's session, we're going to get into your leadership team, and in future sessions, we're going to talk about setting club goals as you get ready. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Larry Lohman. For those who attended session 1, you had his bio, and that's also on the PE page, part of the resources that we have. But Larry is our district governor-elect. He will be getting ready to basically become a district governor on July 1. So he's been working for this for a couple of years now. And then also as far as he's going to be helping you because your role is vital as a club president. So Larry, have you grilled anything recently?
Yes, I have grilled a few things recently, including gator.
And how does it taste, like chicken or,
It's got a texture like chicken. It's similar, but still has a distinct taste. So
Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to Larry, who will take us to the next steps here.
All right. Well, has Mr. Hugo come in yet? Trying to blank out some stuff.
No, I don't see him.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to kind of introduce our district governor line. With us tonight, we do have our district governor, Patricia Myers from the Rotary Club of Hudson Clock Tower. And we do have our district governor nominee, David Jones from the Rotary Club of Northampton, Cuyahoga Valley. So if everybody could welcome both of those individuals. And the one thing, as we move into our, I'm going to do that. Move into your presidencies. Something to think about is whose shoes do you fill during your presidency? I can tell you from my experience personally, the only ones that I found to fit were my own. When I was in line to become president 4 years ago, I was looking around at all the different past presidents from my club and the current president and seeing what they focused on, the way they approached their topics and how they approached the club and even how they spoke. I can tell you really this overwhelmed me really fast. I didn't know how I was going to live up to the legacies they set forth. I was very nervous. One day I was talking to a wise man who just happened to be one of our Rotarians, gentleman by the name of Robert Meeker. And I mentioned this to him, how I was overwhelmed, how I was nervous. And he gave me some advice that someone had once given him. It is one thing to learn from others and to see what type of shoe they wear, even try it on but you'll find that that shoe really does not fit. You know, I started thinking about this. I kind of then pointed at my shoes and asked, how do they fit? And I responded, they are quite comfortable and I could walk miles in them. Bob and I were good friends and everything. And I started thinking about, what he just said. And I started understanding that, I didn't need to start looking around at everybody else. It's great to see what the other presidents are doing and, continue that momentum. But I found that the shoes that I was wearing were the right ones. So the question again is, what shoes will you be wearing when you lead your club? I chose the ones that I had already worn for miles, and I think, that's my advice going into your presidencies. Is just look at yourself, be yourself, and you will have a successful year. And with that, do we have John Hugo yet? No. All right. Well,
So
No,
we
but
do have two
poll
polls. Yes.
we do have
So,
two polls. Okay, great. Let's do some polls. I'm going to step out real quick and see if I can.
So Cheryl, if you could go ahead and add poll question number 1. So this is just for us to get a little bit more information, as far as the audience tonight. Pretty simple right off the bat. We'll have a second question here shortly, but did you attend session 1? Off the top of my head, I think it was a Wednesday, September 9th. That might have been the Tri-District. I know it was a Wednesday, but did you attend session number 1? Yes or no?
I'm going to end the polling and give you the results. There you go.
All right, so about 3/4 of you either attended or watched the video. Right now, I think we have probably about 37 PEs are identified. So in other words, of our roughly 50 plus clubs, probably about at least 4/5, or maybe if I'm doing the math right, 3/4 are identified. So as far as so of those who did attend, we had probably about 20 in attendance the first session. Tonight, I think we have slightly more. So that's how many we showed. So let's move on to poll question number 2. So tonight is about building your leadership team and getting that ready. So here's question number 2 that gives us a little bit more information. Some of you already have your boards are known. Some of you have to fill positions between now and July. And as someone who is a past club president, I know sometimes that's a never-ending process. You fill a position there, something happens, you got to fill another one. So how many board positions do you have to fill by July 1?
Okay.
Wow. I didn't expect half of them to be completely filled, to be quite honest. So that's good as far as who your leadership team is, and you can start basically planning what things you want to accomplish together next year. So a few of you still have some to fill. So of our participants, 20%, a fifth of you have about 1 to 3 to fill, another 10%, 4 to 7, 10%, 8 plus. That's a lot of work to be doing, but hopefully you've got some good Rotarians to pull from. And then lastly, as far as some of you are unsure that this is part of your responsibilities, and based on your club dynamics, it's certainly good to ask your current club president, not to mention other people that you as far as trust and have that good rapport with, that you work well together. So something to at least be mindful of as far as 1, who's going to help you be successful, and 2, what are some of those goals that you're going to have during your year and how will you work together? So Larry, I will turn it back over to you to introduce our Rotary CEO.
Thank you, Ryan. It is a privilege to have the opportunity to introduce to you tonight the General Secretary and CEO of both Rotary International and the Rotary Foundation, John Hugo. In his oversight of both entities, which includes a staff of nearly 800 at headquarters in Evanston and 7 offices outside of the U.S., John manages the operating budget of over $450 million and assets of more than $1 billion. He holds a law degree from Harvard University, a master's in modern history from Oxford University, and a bachelor's in government and Soviet studies from Hamilton College in Clinton, New York. Our General Secretary speaks 4 languages besides English: Portuguese, Russian, Spanish, and Ukrainian. In his tenure with Rotary, he has brought critical international expertise, particularly in the areas of negotiation and the development of both governmental and NGO partnerships. John's practice of international law placed him in lead management positions for his firm in Moscow, Kiev, and Prague, specializing in corporate transactions in emerging markets. He was also the lead negotiator for the U.S. government for foreign assistance programs to 26 of some of the world's poorest countries located in Africa, Asia, South America, the Middle East, and the former Soviet Union. While working in Ukraine in the early 1990s, John Huko assisted the working group that prepared the initial draft for the new Ukrainian post-Soviet constitution and was a charter member of the first Rotary Club of Kiev. General Secretary Huko has been a public policy scholar at the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars, an adjunct professor of law at Georgetown University, and a visiting scholar at the Carnegie Endowment for the International Peace. John and his wife, Margarita, live in Evanston and are major donors to the Rotary Foundation. Many of us consider General Secretary Huko one of our own. He is a regular visitor to Northeast Ohio as an alumnus of the Western Reserve Academy in Hudson and currently a member of its board of trustees. John also encouraged the chartering of an Interact Club at his alma mater by the Rotary Club of Hudson. Presidents-elect, please join me in welcoming General Secretary John Huko back to District 6630.
So glad to see you.
Well, thank you so much, Larry, for that warm welcome. I'm delighted to be back in Northeast Ohio. I spent 4 fantastic years at Western Reserve Academy in Hudson, and I very much used to enjoy going back in person for the Board of Trustee meetings. I see Pat Myers, shout out from Hudson. Please say hi to everyone from in Hudson for me. And again, thank you very much for having me. First of all, let me congratulate all the president-elects who are on this call for your election and for your service to Rotary. Of course, we're in this difficult COVID period now, and it's going to be topsy-turvy for everybody. But certainly from Rotary International, I'd like to thank you for your service and for stepping up and for being leaders in your respective Rotary clubs. Perhaps I can just start by giving you a brief overview of what I do as the General Secretary. My primary obligation is to oversee the Rotary International professional staff. Rotary employs about 775 employees around the world. Our headquarters, our world headquarters, Rotary's headquarters, the headquarters for the Secretariat is in Evanston, Illinois, which is a city that abuts Chicago. We have about 575 employees in Evanston, and then we have another 200 in our 7 offices outside of the United States. We have an office in Sydney, one in Tokyo, in Seoul. We have one in Delhi. We have a back office data processing and software development center in Pune, India. We have one in Zurich in Europe that oversees Europe and Africa, and then one in Sao Paulo, Brazil, which looks after South America, which looks after Brazil. The rest of South America we handle out of Chicago. So I'm starting my 10th year as your General Secretary. It's been a great run. And again, I have the privilege of overseeing a great staff, and our job is really to support you, the Rotarians, the club presidents, district governors, all up and down the Rotary chain and the Rotary pyramid. As you begin to consider your leadership team, et cetera, I thought it might be just helpful to take a few minutes to just give you a brief overview of where we stand today as an organization, Rotary, and then where we're headed. What are some of the challenges we face, where we're headed? Because I think where we're headed in some of the issues again that we're facing, I think would hopefully will be helpful as you think through the type of personality, the skill set that you're thinking of appointing and developing in terms of your own leadership teams at the club level. So for me, back in January, it became very clear that what was happening in China was going to spread around the globe, and it was not going to end well. So I set up a COVID response task force in early January, and we began getting ready for what eventually happened, that is going to a full virtual operational model. And I'm glad we did it, because we took the months of January and February to kind of get our act together, and we worked through a number of bugs that we developed. I sent the entire secretariat home for a day to practice worldwide to see what it would be like, and I'm glad we did. We were able to, again, iron out a lot of the kinks in the system. And on March 12th, we went full bore. All 775 employees began working virtually. And I was surprised at how seamless it was, how effective it was. And as I speak today, we are supporting the Rotarians at the same high quality and the same level that we were prior to COVID. If anything, a lot of our areas are busier than they ever were before. As you know, we hold a convention every year. Somewhere in the world, we'll get anywhere from 25 to 50,000 Rotarians. If you haven't been to Rotary International Convention, once we can do them in person, highly recommend you do it. And we had to pivot almost immediately. We canceled Honolulu and had to put together a virtual convention, which for those of you that participated, for our first try at it, went extremely, extremely well. And so as we speak today, I can tell you that Rotary from an operational perspective is very, very sound, firing on all cylinders, and we continue to support Rotarians as we were prior to COVID. Similarly, a lot of questions on, where are we going to stand financially? What's going to happen to our membership? And fortunately, I like to manage by data, not by intuition. And we have a PhD economist on staff. And I asked him to look at the last 115 years of Rotary history and really see what happened to our membership. And what's interesting is only once in our history, and that was 2 years after the Great Depression, we had a significant drop in membership of about 5.6%. Other than that, in all the great crises that the world has faced, our membership has either gone up in some of those difficult years, paradoxically, or to the extent it's fallen globally, it's been at around 1 or 2%. You have to remember, for each percent of membership that we lose globally, that represents an $800,000 loss to Rotary's budget in terms of dues that we lose. And so even if we were to lose 5% of our membership, that represents an $800,000 loss of revenue. And Rotary leaders through the years have been very prudent with your money, with Rotarian money, and have built up very solid reserves, around $70 million for Rotary International. And so even if we were to see a 5% drop, which has only happened once in our history, Rotary has more than adequate reserves to cover any shortfall. So as I speak today, from an organizational perspective, from an operational perspective, Rotary is extremely strong. And from a financial perspective, we are very, very strong. Now, moving forward, what's all this COVID going to mean for us as an organization? What's it going to mean for you as incoming club presidents? And what's it going to mean in terms of forming a leadership team in your club? And again, from a global perspective, the world is in terrible straits. Our country is in terrible straits. There's no denying that. And if you look at the horizon, it looks like there's just one big black cloud there. However, I think often in these crises, there are small silver linings. There are a few white clouds that appear. And for Rotary, I think there are a few silver linings that we can take from this COVID experience, and a few opportunities that it offers us as an organization. One is in the area of membership. We have been struggling in North America now for quite a bit in terms of membership loss. We've been at 1.2 million worldwide for the last 20 years, but that's only because we've seen significant growth in Asia and in Africa. North America continues to drop. Australia, New Zealand, UK, Canada, all suffering significant membership losses, and the trend has been downward. Obviously, 100% of all Rotarians were Americans in 1905 when Paul Harris established the first Rotary Club. We're now down to 25% of Rotarians are from the US, and that number continues to drop fairly rapidly. So how do we deal with this membership issue that in many parts of the US, and again, it differs from club to club, from region to region, how are we going to deal with that challenge that we have? Well, we've been trying for a long time to get Rotarians to think about alternative club models, embracing technology, doing things slightly different. And it's been tough. We're an organization deeply steeped in tradition for good reason. And with, it's been difficult to get people to sort of really begin thinking differently. Then all of a sudden COVID comes and boom, 1.2 million Rotarians had no choice but to operate in a new way, as we are right now in this meeting. And we're finding that many Rotarians are saying, well, this isn't all that bad. Obviously, it doesn't match meeting in person, and we all can't wait to get back to meeting in person and getting back to normal lives. But at least in the short and medium term, that's going to be fairly problematic. And so as I travel the world virtually, and I'll start in the morning doing something in India, and I'll wind up at 10 at night doing something in California, and everywhere in between, we're seeing that clubs are reporting that we used to get 50% attendance. Now we're getting 95% attendance. We're going to move to a hybrid model when this is all over. We'll have 2 in-person meetings and 2 virtual meetings. Gee, I'm able to go visit the world. And, my wife, who's president-elect of the Rotary One, the Chicago One, Paul Harris's club, she's hopping all over the world, visiting clubs and attending meetings, and it's possible to do with this new technology. So I think that as we look at our membership challenge, for me, it really comes down to we're selling a product in the marketplace. And that product is our club experience. And we're finding in North America, because the numbers don't lie, in many places, in fact, in most places, people are either not buying our product, or when they buy it, it wasn't what it was cracked up to be. Last year, we had 150,000 people join Rotary globally. We had 150,000 people leave Rotary. And so as we think about our membership issue, for me, it's about a product. We're not selling soap, we're not selling, towels. We're selling a club experience, and you pay for that club experience with your time and your money. And people are not finding a value proposition in the club experience that we're offering. And so the solution for me is either you try to convince the market to change, which it won't, or you adapt and change your product line to meet the needs of the marketplace. And so with this COVID crisis and the fact we've all been forced to do things slightly differently, I think in many Rotarians' minds, it's opened up now the possibility of, okay, maybe we can do things a little differently. Maybe we can start thinking a little bit out of the box and offering a product that is perhaps more attractive to the demographic we're trying to attract. Remember, there is no Rotary police. There is no Rotary police. For me, what's important is that a club be strong, it's vibrant, it's attracting new members, it's doing great projects and making a difference in the community. The rules are important, but they're not the be all and end all. What we can never change are our core values, the 4-way test, focus on ethics, the fellowship we have, all the things, the value structure that makes Rotary. But meeting formats, ringing a bell, those aren't values. Those are just vehicles, mechanisms through which we deliver our values. And I think what COVID has shown many of us is that, oh my God, there is an opportunity here to really change, to adapt, and to do things differently. And for the US Rotary, in some ways, it's an existential question because the numbers don't look good. And again, I'm giving you a global perspective. There are pockets that are doing extremely well, that are strong, et cetera. And so if your club is doing well under the traditional model and everyone's happy and you're in great shape, don't change, carry on. But if we're struggling, then the solution is either continue dying or adapt and change in a way that the marketplace finds attractive and interesting. So that's one. And then the other tack we're taking globally and particularly North America is also creating new clubs under new models that perhaps would be more attractive to a demographic that we're struggling to attract with our current traditional model. So as you're thinking about the next year and the team you want to build around you, I would urge that you identify people who have that kind of innovative mindset, that are willing to think out of the box, that are eager to seize on this opportunity that COVID provides us, as terrible as it is for our society and the world, to really rethink our product, to reshape Rotary, and to really take us in a new direction here in North America. And again, I don't know the latest membership numbers in District 6630 or in Northeast Ohio, whether you're up, down, holding your own. But I suspect that throughout the district there are clubs that are struggling, and so I would urge you to think of people who kind of want to embrace this change and embrace a new way of thinking. And secondly, and again, I don't know how strong Rotaract is in your district. 95% of Rotaractors do not become Rotarians. And these are young men and women who are passionate about Rotary, have bought into our organization, and only 5% of them globally become Rotarians. And that for me is just a tragedy. It's just a tragedy. And so we now as an organization, centrally now, are promoting what's called Elevate Rotaract, and really treat Rotaract as not just the program of Rotary, but as equal partners to Rotarians. And so this crisis provides an excellent opportunity to strengthen our links with Rotaractors. They live in this environment, no problem. They thrive in this. They're comfortable with it. And I would say that let's really use this as an opportunity to strengthen our ties with the Rotaractors, bring them in to help think through how can we have more interesting meetings? How can we fundraise in this new virtual environment, which is, our fundraising activities are all designed around events, pancake days, walkathons, bike rides, $1 million dinners, auctions, raffles, wine tastings, all of which is not going to be possible in the short and medium term. So how are we going to continue to raise money, which we need to for our great causes, now more than ever, right, given the crisis we're going through in this new virtual environment? How are we going to do our projects in this new virtual environment? And so let's really capitalize on this opportunity to strengthen our ties with Rotaractors, help facilitate that glide path to Rotary, but also it's a tremendous resource that we have that can help us navigate this new virtual world that all of us are trying to get our hands around and to figure out how it's going to work. And finally, let me close on two final points. We need to come out of this crisis as strong as we were going into it. And that means retaining our current membership. And if one looks at the global numbers in terms of membership retention and loss, it's very clear, and it's a pattern throughout the world. The longer one is in Rotary, the less likely you are to leave. It's very clear. It doesn't matter. It's universal, that concept. And the real danger point for people leaving is in that second and third year of being a Rotarian. That's the window where we see the greatest number of departures. And so we need to focus on retention on all of our members, but particularly on those that are newer to Rotary, because they're most at risk for leaving. And the second point I'd like to close on is that we're hearing anecdotally and seeing that some clubs are meeting more than ever, more engaged than they were before. But I suspect there are a lot of clubs that aren't meeting, are struggling. And if a club goes 4 or 5 months without meeting, that club's over. I suspect that club's not going to survive. And so I think this is a moment for all of us to pull together. And to the extent there's clubs, neighboring clubs that are struggling, having difficulty organizing meetings, whether it's technology or whatever it happens to be, I think we need to this is a time to really rally around all our fellow clubs and help them through this process so that we can ensure that those clubs that are struggling make it through this COVID crisis. And so again, thank you all for taking on this role as president-elects. It's a great time, in my view, to be a president-elect. We're on the verge of eradicating polio. We're implementing our strategic plan. We have this COVID crisis, which on the one hand is horrific, but on the other hand offers tremendous opportunities for us to recalibrate, to pivot as we hit this crossroads in our history here in North America. The sky is not falling. Rotary is, on a global level, is solid from both a financial and from an operational perspective. And I would say, in some ways, the world needs Rotary now more than ever. We were built, in my view, for situations like this. Deep roots in every community in the world almost. Again, there's not a politician in the world probably doesn't have a Rotarian as a constituent. You know, in some way, we were built for moments like this. I mean, this is our time. If you remember when Herb Brooks in that movie, Miracle on Ice, is giving our hockey team a pep talk in the locker room before he sends them out on to play the Soviets in Lake Placid. And I'm paraphrasing here, but he goes, "This is our moment. This is our moment." And I think that's the case for Rotary. This is our moment now. And we're built for this moment, and to step up and help with COVID, to step up and help with the myriad of other social issues that are coming up as a result of this crisis. We're uniquely positioned to do that. And you as president-elects will obviously be playing a leadership role in your communities, whether it's in Hudson or Cleveland or anywhere else, to continue to make a difference. So Larry, thanks again for having me. And I was asked to end at 7:42, at 7:40. I think I'll stop there. And I guess we got 2 minutes. So if anyone would like to ask a question or make a comment, I'm more than happy to answer or respond. Thank you so much, and all the best to you.
Thank you so much, General Secretary Hugo. So is there any quick questions? We do want to move to our breakouts as on schedule. So if you put your hand up or write it into the chat box, please.
I can say that I am so grateful to General Secretary Hugo for all that he has done to me here. He is the right leader at the right time for all of us. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Pat. And again, I'm delighted we were able to get a Rotaract Club set up at Reserve. That's a great, great result. Thanks for helping making that happen.
You're welcome.
I sent a question. I hope that Cheryl sees it. Thank you.
Cheryl, do you see a question from Kathy?
I
Kathy,
thought
you want to just
I
go
was
ahead and ask?
monitoring the chat box. My apologies.
Oh,
Let me go through and look. I do apologize for that. I was not monitoring the chat.
I didn't see anything, Cheryl.
Oh, she sent it to me privately. Pardon me. The question was, love his message. Can he help us understand how to share this flexibility with the long-standing members who need that structure of bell ringing, pledge, prayer, etc.?
Well, again, there's no magic formula other than have an open, frank conversation and say, you know, are we happy with where the club is? If people are happy and delighted, well, then so be it. You know, from a global perspective, we're taking the view that we're going to work with existing clubs, those that are struggling, and help them if they want to be helped. If they don't, then let's let them carry on, no problem. Eventually they'll wither and die. And let's put our energy, because you don't have unlimited resources, where are we going to get the biggest return on investment? Let's focus on creating new clubs, innovative club models that perhaps are more attractive, that start from fresh, that start with a new perspective, and hopefully they'll get off to a different start. So there's no magic formula in terms of the interclub dynamics. Just again, certainly to the extent that RI is telling you, there is no Rotary police. There is a huge desire to ask people to be innovative, think out of the box, because we do have a membership crisis in the U.S. We got to tackle it for the good of Rotarians in the U.S., but also for the good of our organization. We need that solid U.S. anchor in Rotary. So,
John,
Here's
one other question, John. With regard to Rotaract that you're seeing throughout the world, how are they different than in the United States? Do you see projects or programs going through Rotaract? I know they're doing it in college. How can we encourage that more for them to transition that role into a Rotary club?
Right. Well, there's two types of Rotaract generally clubs in the world. There's community-based, and they tend to be more in Europe, India, Korea, those places, and they're very strong because they're more community-based. And so you get a lot more longevity. You get people staying in Rotaract much longer, and they tend to be more successful. In the US, they tend to be more university-based, right? And so it's difficult. Kids come, they go, and it's hard to keep that leadership going in that continuity going. I think it really begins with the Rotarians to identify the Rotaractors that you've actually, Pat, it was an Interact Club at Reserve. I apologize, it wasn't a Rotaract Club, it was an Interact Club. But you know, you've got to reach out to work with your local Rotary. They're great resource. Treat them as equal partners. Get them involved in projects. When I speak at the IA, I asked the district governors, give the Rotaractors a day at your district conference. In fact, turn over the whole district conference to them. Let them put an event together. You know, why not? Give it a shot. And they can now hold district-wide positions. And so it's a matter of doing things together, it seems to me. And when you do things together and you both bring your sets of talents together as equal partners to do something, I think that helps bridge the generational gap. You know, but in the U.S. it's a big challenge because most Rotaractors tend to be university versus you don't get a whole lot of 30-year-olds in Rotaract, whereas you do in Germany, you do in India, you do, you know, those kinds of places.
Hi, John, this is Cheryl Warren. Thank you so much for being with us. Good to see you as always.
Yeah.
It's good timing to talk about Rotaract. Tomorrow I have a conference call with our Rotaract Club for Akron, and they're a combination community college. And as far as I can tell, there's no rules pertaining to that. I have our district chair of our Rotaract committee joining us in the call. We're trying to reinvigorate the Akron Rotaract Club, and so I appreciate your comments. Really, they've hit home with me this evening. Would you also elaborate? One of the questions that came through on my phone was, would you elaborate on, if we're finished with Rotaract, would you elaborate on the new area of focus that Rotary has rolled out?
We have, you know, traditionally when we rolled out our new grant model in 2013, we had 6 areas of focus. It was becoming very clear from the surveying we were doing, the feedback we were getting, particularly among younger prospective members, that the environment was very high on people's radar. Now there is environment embedded in a lot of our original 6 areas of focus. You know, the water and sanitation is one area of focus. Of course, that directly tied to environment, disease prevention, treatment, maternal child health. So there is community development. So there was already environmental issues embedded within many of the other existing areas of focus. But there was a feeling that we really just need to come straight out and say, Rotary considers the environment important, our membership considers it important, and prospective members certainly find it something that's important. And so we've added a 7th area of focus. We're now developing the guidelines, the parameters, and they'll be, by the end of the year, we'll do a rollout with you know, all the, you know, how to you know, what all the various, what qualifies as a project, et cetera, as later on this year. So we're very excited about it, and it's been very, very well received throughout the Rotary world.
Thank you, John, so much for your valuable time tonight. You obviously have a huge role in shaping our future and working with numerous clubs. We greatly appreciate your time as far as hopefully inspiring our presidents-elect. We are going to shift now into our breakout sessions, about 20 minutes each. David, if you want to throw up the slide for that. So real quickly, as far as this is your time to interact with one another, you're probably going to have about 4 to 6 participants in each breakout room. And the goal is just to learn from one another, but quickly introduce yourself, your name. My name is Ryan Knotts. I'm from the Rotary Club of Hillcrest Sunrise. What did you learn from John's topic that you might take back to your club as far as how you shape and think about your year and the people that you're going to work with? And then 2, how also are you going to, as far as work with some of those more challenging members? They could be on your leadership team, they could be on your board, but as far as like, how do you approach them to be successful? So Cheryl, I'm assuming at this time you're going to kick us out. The other ask that I have is that basically one representative from each small group, just give a 1-minute high point of your small group. In other words, a volunteer to come back and say, hey, this is a great idea that was discussed in our large group, and we wanted to share this with everybody else. So about 20 minutes, and then we will come back together as a large group. There will be a warning. Cheryl, do we have everyone back roughly?
We do.
Okay. All right. So we've already taken up about 75 minutes of your time. Have a few minutes left here just to wrap up this evening before we have our third session in November. David, let's go ahead and turn to the PowerPoint here. So tonight, we wanted to talk a little bit about building your leadership team, and there are some resources out there. I want to highlight these. We will certainly make them available after the session. I'll send an email out to all those who participated. One of those is really the President-elect manual. It is a PDF. It's available on the district website. It's available on the Rotary Learning Center. But this talks very specifically about what you do. And I think this is one resource. It's not the end all be all. Certainly talking to past presidents of your club, the current president, but really as far as you build out your leadership team, what are you responsible for? And what else do you need to do during your year as president-elect and then continuing your year as president? So this is just one small snippet of that, but this is something that just kind of like keeps you on your toes. And we're going to ask more of you in regards to the PE manual. David, next slide. So as you work with your leadership team, as far as really thinking about what are their skills, what are their strengths, how can they complement you? At the same time, while it's great to like work hand in hand with everyone and be on a great team, it certainly is probably also good for your club to have some basically people who might look at things a little bit differently. And maybe they can play devil's advocate, but make sure that all of your club is being represented as you're making decisions. I know in our small group, they talked about voting, and that can certainly help, but giving others the opportunity to buy input and buy in can also help basically your year. Next slide, David. So the PE manual is one resource. Another one is the Learning Center. And we talked a little bit about this during the session one. I don't know how many have basically signed in and started to take a look around. I do know that I get reports every Monday as far as what modules you're in as district trainer and where you're at. But the Club President's Basic Manual, it says it's about 4 hours and 45 minutes. It is far less. It doesn't take that long to go through there. There's a series of videos. There's some interactive PDFs. But this is one thing that you can kind of look to as far as like, where am I at and where do I need to go? But it's evolving. I will tell you, as far as even as I took this course a couple of years ago, they've added a few sections to it that are important to basically highlight, and at least RI, Rotary International, feels are valuable for your development. So the Rotary Learning Center is another great resource. And then I think the other thing, David, that we were highlighting was the PE page. So on the District 6630 website, there's basically a section here, and David thankfully has gotten this very well lined out, but it's under Club Resources. And when you click on Club Resources on the District 6630 webpage, you'll see that little section there that says Presidents-elect. And when you click on this section, you get this fantastic picture of our DGE, Larry Lohman, but you also get some other great resources as far as PDFs and other things that are available to you to help make your job easier, or at least during your planning process. So as I said, probably next week, we will have a video up of tonight's session, tonight's recording. We didn't record the breakout rooms, but everything else. And I will send out an email with some of the attachments and links for tonight that can help guide you on your journey. In addition to that, we'll also have a quick SurveyMonkey link that can basically help us plan accordingly as far as so we know that we're covering the important topics. We do know some topics, but we also want to hear from you. So those are some of the resources. Larry, you want to do a little bit of question and answer here for a few minutes?
Absolutely. We can do some question and answer here. What kind of questions do you as PEs have for us at this point? What can we do to help you guys? Because that's what we're here for.
I have a question.
Sure.
Ryan, you showed, this was probably the first or second slide, when you showed the chart between the president-elect and president. Be nice to know, like, from a timeline, when should those when should you start doing some of those things?
Well, some of them you should be doing now. So as we've kind of outlined in session 1 in September, assessing your club, and whether that's just taking a general mountaintop view as far as like, what's the forest look like? As far as where are we at? What are we doing well? What do we need to improve upon? You know, as far as like, I think one of the questions that's being raised with a lot of clubs right now is going forward, will there be a combination of in-person and or virtual meetings? I don't know if that's right for your club, but that's certainly a question that can be raised. In addition to that, some of you already have your leadership team built out, and whether they are pre-elected and you know exactly who you're going to be working with for membership chair, president-elect, so on, or as far as you have to fill those roles, that's another task that you have between now and July 1 to do. And I would say the sooner the better, you know, because as far as getting those people in place gives them time to be thinking about what they need to do, and also for you to communicate what you can be doing successfully. And part of that is setting club goals. So there are some resources. The President-elect Manual is a great resource to read. I know it's about 80-page PDF. It's not that long. There's a lot of blank spaces as far as jotting down notes or other stuff. There's a lot of white space, to be quite honest. Honestly, if it was condensed, it'd probably be less than 25 pages if you were to read it. But it's a good resource as far as to be planning. The other thing I would say, Latif, is be talking with your current club leadership. So in other words, whether it's the current club president or people who have come before them, asking their input.
I'm sorry, Ryan, there's a question on the chat. What's the largest initial challenge? What is the largest initial challenge of president? And Adam replied, I'd say it's getting your initial plans and focus set for your year. As you're probably seeing, there are so many areas where you can focus. The question is, which areas do you want to focus on with your club? So I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Ryan.
I don't. I'm going to let Adam verbally take it from there because he's a fantastic Rotarian leader.
Yeah, one of the things that I talked to our breakout room about, and I talked to all president-elects about, is I would recommend that you sit down between now and when you take over as president, and you either sit down one-to-one or you have a phone call one-to-one with everybody in your club. So you get a chance to get to know those people, okay? Because you're going to be asking them for help. And as you start having those kind of discussions, you'll start hearing feedback from them in terms of what things that they're excited about, what things that they're frustrated about, and it'll start to help you get your plans together, your thoughts together for your year as president. So a great way to do is again, have some one-to-ones with people in your club. You got time. We have 9 months before you take office. So start doing it. The sooner the better.
Hey, Ryan, I have a question. This is Steve Bowie from Akron. Has the leadership ever considered, rather than having a presidency run for 1 year, that there would be a longer period of time? And the only reason I ask is if we're changing leadership every single year, it really would seem to be quite challenging for continuity and for purpose and focus. And so I'm wondering if any consideration has ever been given to that.
You want me to take that one, Ryan?
I was going to defer to one of our past PDGs, but
Okay,
it's a
work
great
too.
question. Yeah.
Well, I can say something to that effect. Many clubs do extend it. Many clubs let their presidents go 2 years. There's no written rule that I don't even think it's in our bylaws. But if you think about it, Steve, I'm in your club. Our Rotary International president changes every year. And it's fresh, new ideas. Our district governor changes every year. But there are many clubs who go 2 years with their presidency. Pat, would you like to elaborate?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing that a number of clubs do. In fact, sometimes they'll serve 2 years in a row and then another person will come in, then they'll come back and serve another 2 years in a row. But, it changes from club to club.
It depends on your size of your club. It is difficult, Steve, to get started and try to do 6 things. When we were district governor, at least in my year, we were told to recommend to clubs, pick your 3 top things that you want to try to accomplish. Don't try to change the world. Try to change the things that you think you can do in that period of time. And it is a challenge, even as district governor. David can tell you, he started his DGND year. You start 36 months almost out. So we're electing our DGND right now to follow David. They will start preparing all this time out. And that's why it's so important to have a succession plan. And you're fortunate in your club, in my club, that we have such a thing as a succession plan so that you can have that turnover. And without that, we have clubs that are repeating their presidencies 3-4 times because they don't have enough people to go around.
Yeah. But
So Stephen, as far as
that
it's
is
mentioned,
true.
you have flexibility, as far as like, Rotary International, there's no police that says you have to do it this way. Some clubs are basically extended because they have to, but I think as far as Cheryl also pointed out, how do you build that continuity with the people who are going to come after you? In other words, maybe they're already elected, maybe they're not, but basically saying, hey, this is what we're working on. Is this something you're also in favor with? In other words, can we adapt it to make sure that everyone's on the same page and there is some continuity there to be successful for your club?
Well, thank you. And one of the things that our past president from 2 years ago did is he initiated a strategic plan. And we had about 8 to 10 people that worked on that for a period of about 4 to 6 months in developing a strategic plan. And right now, our club is attempting to live into that. And I think for us, that can provide some of that continuity of moving through, because it's a much bigger story than any one of us.
Great question, though. Other questions here before we wrap up for the evening?
I was wondering what astounding things did a lot of people in the breakouts have ideas that John Yuko shared? I mean, that inspired?
So usually we would have had like basically some opportunity for open, but we are kind of running it short on time and we want to be sensitive to everyone's time. More than happy for people to stay longer after 8:30, but any takeaways from John Yuko's topic or questions?
We have one more poll, Ryan, as
Okay.
well.
I'll jump in real quick with our group. A couple things that really jumped out. John talked about the stat where between years 2 and 3, that's where we tend to lose a lot of people. And we had some good discussion around ways to get people in, everything from, throw them right into some of the big roles, like, being a PE or being treasurer, or just get them involved in the club's activities and the club projects. But, to get them involved is very, very important. The second thing that jumped out too, John talked about the whole club experience is what we're selling. And so that club experience has been totally changed here in the last 7 months. And so as a PE, what things do you want to hold on to that they're a big part of your club experience you want to bring forward? And what things do you want to maybe change to be able to add to it to make sure that club experience is going to be very, very good for the current members, as well as new folks you're going to be able to hopefully attract.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Anybody else before we wrap up? I want to mention some upcoming dates, but any final thoughts or questions?
Well, I want to ask Nicole is that your daughter, Nicole? She's adorable.
It is, sorry. They're ready for stories.
It is the pleasure of doing Zoom. Hello, sweetheart.
Hi.
It's the one thing we don't get in person.
All right, Cheryl, you want to run that final poll question? So we are going to send out a SurveyMonkey link along with the attachments, but it's helpful for us just to get feedback as far as, has this been helpful as far as tonight's conversation with John, with each other, as far as the information that we share? Has this been beneficial to your preparation as you get ready for your year as club president starting July 1? So it's been beneficial, strongly disagree, strongly agree. I think as Adam pointed out last time, we kind of messed it up and we didn't even give you the strongly disagree option. We just like, no, we'll just leave that off.
I'm waiting for the write-in section where they can tell me what a great job I did. Come on, Ryan.
That's in our SurveyMonkey, Adam. All right, so overwhelmingly, 65% strongly said this was beneficial. 35% said agree. So we've got some work to do, but we're here for you. As far as David, if you want to show the final slides here, we want to help you succeed during your year as club president because that improves Rotary. So there's a number of people involved at the district level. This is the lead committee. These are people who basically plan things like this and other trainings to help Rotarians be successful. And again, we're going to send this PowerPoint out to you so you'll have that. Your assistant governor is a invaluable resource. So as far as they usually have a cluster of anywhere from 4 to 6 clubs that they're responsible for, and you should have seen them at events, whether meetings, fundraisers, socials. Not to mention they communicate on a regular basis with the club leadership team. They're another resource that's available to you. All right, wrapping up here. So I don't know, I know there's a save the date, interactions coming up here on November 7th. And this is also on the district website calendar, but our session 3 is Thursday, November 12th. This will be our 3rd session. We're gonna have another fantastic speaker. Foundation Gala is on Thursday, the 19th. Presidents-elect Training 1 used to be a 4 to 6 hour event, will be much shorter. It'll be virtual. Will be on Saturday, January 16th. There will be some foundation grants management seminars likely in February. All Hail Pets is still being worked on as far as whether or not that's virtual in person. I don't think we have any news on that yet, but we know that that's coming up in March. And then we will have the district conference and district leadership assembly in late April. And hopefully, fingers crossed, Rotary International Conference in Taipei. I've been to one Rotary International Conference during my time as Rotary. That was Toronto, was much closer, but a really motivational thing. And my wife, who it's like, why do you do all this stuff? Loved it. So as far as like, that was good for me because she thought the speakers were great. She got to learn a lot more about Rotary. That's a fantastic thing if you can ever go to one of those. So our thanks to you for joining us tonight. I will be sending out an email next week with just attachments of survey and then also the registration for the November date. But we greatly appreciate everyone.
And one thing to add, Ryan, registration is open, right, Cheryl, for session 3 on the website. So hop right off here, go to the district website and get signed up for the next session. We'll see you there.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
good night, everyone.